Alright troops, today we're going to be talking Numenor, but not the Numenor you know from the last Alliance. We're going to go 1700 years before that to the War of the Elves and Sauron. So I feel the War of the Elves and Sauron is an often overlooked period of Middle-earth's history. It took place in the year 1700, which is around halfway through the Second Age, and is home to some absolutely incredible events. Some of them you may know. Barad-dûr is completed. Glorfindel and the two blue wizards arrive in Middle-earth. The One Ring is forged in Mount Doom. The Rings of Power are forged in Eregion. There's the siege of Ost and Ethel and the destruction of Eregion, which is where Celebrimbor is captured and killed. Fun fact, in the Fellowship of the Ring you can actually see Ost and Ethel after the Fellowship leave Rivendell. There's a part where Elrond's army is about to be surrounded and cut off and killed. However, some dwarves from Khazad-dûm and elves from Lothlorien come in at the last minute and save him. There's the siege of Lindon and Rivendell. I bet you had no idea that Rivendell was actually under siege at one point in Middle-earth's history. And it's all looking a bit shit for the elves. However, massive Numenorian fleets come out the west and just utterly destroy Sauron and his armies. Oh, I'm getting all hot and bothered just thinking about it. The Numenorians are so powerful, they almost completely wipe out Sauron and his army themselves. However, he does manage to retreat to Mordor with a couple of his followers. This is where some people think the fall of Numenor really started. They realise how powerful they are and they become a bit arrogant, and they slowly become more and more fearful of death. And this is how Anatar is able to corrupt Ar-Pharazôn, you ignorant slut, into invading the Undying Lands. And we all know how that ended. Not well. So you can see why a big sweaty Tolkien geek like myself would be really drawn to this period of time. So as always when starting a project, I look to the amazing videos and artwork that we have available online. I am also a big fan of taking into account our own history, as it's important to remember that Tolkien took a lot of inspiration from real world cultures. So in looking at Numenorians on Google, I found a couple of images I really love. Specifically these four. I want to incorporate different parts of these images into my armies. I cannot find shell helmets for miniatures anywhere, so if anybody knows, please do tell me. But luckily, the plumes are an easy find, so you can either go in the form of ancient Greeks or Romans. I felt this was a good fitting place to start, as these are two of the most powerful empires our world has ever seen, which fits in well with Numenor being the most powerful empire in Middle-earth. What ended up swaying me to the Roman side was the fact that I already had 3 boxes of Warlord Praetorian Guard from a project that I just didn't start years ago. So, now the controversial part. For this project, I am not going to be using Games Workshop miniatures. I will always try and use Games Workshop. What is that?
Stop right there, criminal scum!
Oh, hello officer. Nothing to see here. Right, where was I? Oh yeah, so I will always try and use Games Workshop models because I love to support the hobby and the company, but unfortunately Games Workshop just doesn't cover this period, so I'm going to have to get a bit creative. And I will warn you that this is going to be a long video because there's about 140 miniatures and every single one of them is customly converted, I believe. So let's get cracking. The first thing I'm going to concentrate on in this project is the core infantry of the army. I always imagined the Numenorians having big phalanxes with spears. So I'm going to start with the core Roman body and helmet, which I get from the Praetorian Guard sprue from Warlord. The first thing I'm going to do is glue the feathers into the helmet. I should have glued the feathers in first before attaching the head. As you can see, I managed to break the head off the miniature and had to start again. I then glued the left arm in, but we are going to chop off the weapon and use a new one. I feel the Roman pilaus, shields and gladiuses are just too iconically Roman and just a bit too small and not what I want. I don't want it to just be Romans, I want them to have their own unique Numenorian feel. So I go to a more Dark Agey set, so I've got these plastic Normans, and I'm going to use the spears and swords from this set for my miniatures. So I cut off the hand with the Gladius and switch it with one of the Dark Age swords, which are much longer and more what I think a Numenorian would carry. Then onto the shields. I debated quite a long time between using the kite shields and the round shields. I ended up going with the round shield because I thought it looked better and I had a lot more of them, which meant that I didn't need to buy any more. So I cut off the middle snib on the shield so I could easily do some transfers later on. Stuck the shield onto the arm with some super glue, and Bob's your uncle, that is the first man done. For colour scheme, I decided to go on yellow and purple. A couple of images of Numenorian armies I took inspiration from here. I really like this royal, regal kind of look with the yellow contrast. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Also, purple and yellow is a nice contrasting combination that I've not tried before, so I'm really excited to see how this comes out. So the first thing we're going to do is prime these miniatures black, but we might have to wait a while because, you know, Scotland. So with a brief respite in the hail, I managed to get the base coat of black applied. I then completely cover the miniature in Rhinox hide. If anyone knows where I can get a Rhinox hide spray colour, please let me know, because it would save me a massive amount of time in the future. I then like to do the metallics first. This is so that when I'm dry brushing later on, I don't mess up any of the paint scheme that I've already applied. You should always plan the order of operations of painting your miniatures, just like in maths. Do the most destructive steps first so that you'd have less chance of making mistakes and having to come back and start again. So we start with an all-over coat of Retributor armour, our favourite. And I want the gold to have a warmer look on the Numenorians than I did on my Easterling army. So in my Easterling army I used Drushy Violet as the shade for the gold, which gave it a more dark, kind of evilly tinge, whereas with my Numenorians I'm going to go with Reichland Flesh Tone, which will make it a much nicer and warmer gold colour. Once that's dried, I apply a dry brush of Liberator armour. This really helps make the detail on the armour stand out and look really nice. Then it's Cadian Flesh Tone on all the skin, followed again by Reichland Flesh. You then could highlight the skin with Cadian Flesh Tone again, but as I'm doing a mass army, I'm only going to do this on my heroes. I know I always say faces and bases, but as I'm doing so many miniatures, I just don't have the time. I will probably come back in the future and touch up the faces with a little highlight of Cadian Flesh Tone. I then use Steel Leading Drab for any of the spears or back of the shields, anything kind of wooden. And also apply Mournfang Brown to the strap, the leather strap around the miniature, and the scabbard. So a quick wash of Agrat's Earthshade to tone these down a little bit. Followed by the usual combination of Stormhost Silver, Null Oil, Stormhost Silver on the weapons. Then onto the purple, we're going to use Zeros Purple, followed by a Drushy Violet wash, before a final dry brush of Genestealer Purple. I decided to go with a dry brush here because the details on these miniatures are just so small that I just don't have the time to individually edge highlight them. So I do my usual and give the rim a quick Mournfang Brown coat, before moving on to the final details, which will be the yellow parts of the miniature. I wanted the feathers on the head to have alternating colours because I think that always really stands out and looks really nice. For the shields, I did originally try to build and create my own transfers in Photoshop. However, when I printed these off, the yellow didn't come out too well against the purple and it just looked absolutely crap. So that was a complete waste of time and effort to do all the transfer stuff, and I decided I should just have a go at freehanding. I really despise the idea of having to freehand hundreds of shields, but I didn't really think I had any other option. It was a toss-up between the Star of Elendio and the Great Tree, and I ended up just going with the tree because I had a look at some ancient armies' designs on their shields, and I thought I could kind of try and come up with like a hand-painted ancient symbol, like the ancient Greek kind of hoplites I do think it turned out quite well, but trying to replicate the same design on hundreds of shields did take it out of me a bit, and there's definitely some mistakes in there. But I'll just pretend they're all hand painted by the individual guys, and that's how we'll do that. So I start with a base of Averland Sunset for everything that's going to be yellow, followed by a base layer of Yril Yellow. This is where I left the shields. I was quite happy leaving the shields at this point, but for the feathers on the head and the cloth, I then gave that a wash of Cassandora Yellow, which creates this lovely kind of orange to yellow transition, followed by a quick highlight of Flash Gets Yellow, and that is the miniature done. All we need to do to finish the miniature is give it a quick little layer of PVA on the base, dunked into some Geek Gaming Scenics, and then some tufts applied. All we need to do is pop the guy in with the rest of the phalanx, and I think these have come out quite well indeed. So, as you know, we don't do things in half measures on this channel, so one phalanx you may think is enough, but not here. Because I'm a glutton for punishment, I ended up doing 3 full phalanxes. And to lead these phalanxes, I've converted up 3 separate captains. One of them was from the plastic kit itself, but 2 others were special purchases from Warlord Games. We'll just add the captains down now too. Next up, some ranged. These are just some Roman archers. These aren't actually converted in any way. I will need to repaint the bows, as I forgot Numenorians have steel bows, not wooden bows. Should definitely be at least strength 3. I definitely think I need to go back and do some more work on the skin for these, and possibly add some yellow on the miniature somewhere. I did think about adding some high elf feathers, but they just didn't look. They just looked a bit silly. So I think maybe I'll put a yellow trim along the bottom of the kilt. We'll just add in those 8 into the army. Only joking, there's 16. Because who doesn't love some Numenorian bow action? Next up is some cav. I know Numenor don't get any cavalry options in the book, but I can ally in Rivendell Knights, so that's what I'll probably run them as. I don't know why the most powerful race of men would have no cavalry options, but you know, whatever, Games Workshop. Also, only Defense 5 annoys me as well, but this is not a rant video, so let's move on, shall we? So, these knights come with brass spears that are genuine weapons. I honestly think you could kill someone with one of these. I have this awful feeling that I'm going to stick my hand in one day when I'm trying to pick up a miniature. So the miniatures don't actually come with handholds, you have to drill them yourself, so let's just do that. I then glue the brass rod into his hand. Before then attaching the shield with super glue. The captain in this pack just has his fist in the air, but I wanted to give him a spear like the rest of the guys, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to open this kit that I have here. As I'm going to be giving the foot Eomer a sword, I had a spare spear, so I thought about using this arm for my Numenorian captain. So I just cut it out, cut his arm off, and glued it on. I painted these up in the same way as the infantry, just with yellow and purple. Nothing else had to be done differently apart from the horses, which were just done different shades of brown. First casualty. Oh, man, these spear tips. Who designed a spear tip that's literally a weapon, man? Holy shit.
Will somebody please call all the ambulances?
Then the boring bit, I had to convert up some dismounts. As these Praetorian Guard have chainmail armour, the normal Praetorians are not a good match. Luckily, Warlord were having a sale on some of their sprues, so I ordered some late Romans with the chainmail and I converted up these. I had some spare Praetorian Guard heads as well, however I had to give one no helmet because I ran out. The cloaks I ended up getting from Anvil Industries. They are the patrician cloaks that they do. They're pretty nice. So let's just add these cav into the army. Let's talk HQ options. There are 2 named Numenorian characters from this period in time, which fits in well with the 2 named heroes we have in the Games Workshop book. There's the 11th King of Numenor, Tar Minister, and there's also Commander Kiriatur. As we need mounts and dismounts, I needed to pick up a few different Roman generals from Warlord Games. The best part about this is they come with wee dogs. Not quite as good as a rabbit, but when in Rome. Here is Commander Kiriatur. I literally didn't change anything about this model, I just gave him a shield. The foot and mounted are very similar, just the shoulder pads are slightly different. I think I will go back and stuff these properly eventually, but as you would never see these 2 models on the table at the same time, I'm just going to be a bit cheeky and not tell anyone. I went with red so that he would stand out. I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan of this, I might change it in the future, as I think yellow and red seem a bit too complementary, I'm not too sure. The same for my Tar Minister. The only difference here is I chopped his head off and gave him those spare Praetorian heads that I had. The back of the cloak is open and I will do some freehand at some point.
It's free real estate.
I had a spare couple of the late Romans, so I made some King's Guard. Made in the same way as the dismounted cav, but they have spears and a different helmet that I got from the late Roman command pack. I really like how Tar Minister has come out with the black and the yellow. I got inspiration from this picture here, I just thought it looked awesome, so I had to give it a bash. Let's just add in the commanders, shall we? Now, I wanted some elite infantry for this army, because I had these 3 really cool helms that have like face masks. I really wanted to use them for some scary shock troops with 2-handed weapons. These were a mashup of the late Roman body, 2 different types of helmets, and the Norman double-handed axe, plus the Anvil Industries cape, and I think they look awesome. I've got this awesome gladiator model, which I gave a throwing spear and a plume on his helmet, and I think I'll use him as a restor because he's got throwing spears. I painted them up in the exact same way as the rest of the army so that they fit in. I'll probably have these running on a flank to help defend the sides of the phalanxes. Just pop these elites in now too. So, any normal person would probably stop here, but I had a bunch of Praetorians left that I hadn't used, and I thought, I'm never going to use them ever again. I'm not going to do Romans, or maybe. Nah, I'm not going to do Romans, and I'm not ever going to do any more Numenorians, so I might as well just crack on and get them done. I did think about doing another phalanx, but I thought it'd be pretty boring to do the same thing again, and I ran out of spears and I didn't want to buy any more, so this is what I came up with. I decided what Numenorian army would be finished without some diplomats and a marching band. So I've got these here. I'll be able to use these as either captains, standard bearers, horns, or even storm callers. Let's just pop them in behind the commander. Next up, as I'd run out of spears, I couldn't do another phalanx, and I wanted another infantry unit, so I thought, as the Numenorians are a sea-based empire, I thought why not do some marines? These are exactly the same, except instead of purple and yellow, they are blue and white. The Marines also have a bolt thrower. I know this isn't valid, but maybe half house rule they'll let me use it. I will get round to buying a 28mm ship for this army, and the bolt thrower will be sitting on that. And then there's only one more unit to talk of. I had some ancient Gauls from Warlord lying around, and I thought, why not make some ship's crew for my Numenorian boat? You may wonder how I can make these valid in the army, but probably Gildor and the Noldorian exiles. I could just have them as mad naked men running about with throwing weapons. I thought that could be quite funny. Again, I would never be able to use this army in an actual proper tournament. It really is just for a house campaign for the War of the Elves and Sauron. Maybe some battle reps on the channel as well, who knows. So just pop them into the army and that's us all done. So this project has taken me a very long time. It's been on the go for a couple of months now. I keep dipping and diving out of it and starting and finishing other videos, but I'm so happy that I've finally finished the entire army of about 125 models. Probably constitutes about 1500 to 1600 points. I've not added it up yet, but I will. So please let me know in the comments what you think. Have you ever considered using alternate miniatures for periods that Games Workshop don't cover, or even periods that they do? And with that, I will leave you with some battle shots. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember to give my bell a good old ring. This footage is... I think I forgot to turn the autofocus off on my camera when I was filming. So all this footage is just out of, it does wee jumps and it's out of focus. Oh well, you just remember that for next time. I just won't tell anyone and hopefully you won't notice. So do you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
Just shoot me kind of there a little bit.
Yeah.
Make it look like I'm sweaty.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Right. Oh! Stop! Oh! Oh! So, I think you did that on purpose, didn't you? You got that out of your system?
Me?
Right, so put it on the light spray.
Yeah.
Just so it looks like I'm a little bit sweaty, alright?
Uh-huh.
Just like a little bit sweaty. Stop! Fuck you, get fuck! Oh, I just dropped my fucking phone in it. Oh my god. I just realised I have painted this paint scheme before. I've got 2000 points of dwarfs in yellow and purple. How did I forget that?